What's happening, YouTube? Chevelle74 US here. Just doing a little bit of work in the garage on this Raptor, and just finished cleaning up, and figured I'd give you guys an updated tour on my Harbor Freight 72-inch toolbox. I've been getting a lot of comments on the video lately, and that video is probably about, I don't know, like a year and a half old, something like that. So I've been working out of this quite a bit at home. I've had some additions here. I added these side cabinets, so that's helped kind of clean things up a little bit. And I've done a little bit of rearranging and sorting since I first got the box, which is pretty typical. I mean, it takes a while to get to know a box and how you use it and what's comfortable, and then all of a sudden, when you have more space, you start getting more tools. So yeah, I mean, year and a half into it, I'm happy. It's been a good box, and I've been tempted, you know, like I was actually offered to trade a Snap-on. I think it was like a 60-inch box. I don't know exactly like the model numbers or anything, but it was a slightly smaller box. It was a nice dark metallic blue color, which is like I'm a fan of blue, so that's a sweet box, and it was a lot of money. And you know, guy said, "Listen, if you give me your box and $2,000, it's yours." And it's a pretty good deal, but I just couldn't justify it. You know, this box is doing everything it needs. You know, it suits all my needs. I don't have any complaints. So let's dig in. Let's see. Guess we'll start with the big drawer. So again, you know, drawers open up real nice. Close real nice. Honestly, I don't remember what the original video looked like. I gotta go back and look at it, but this is the current setup. I got all my sockets organized with Ernst wrench rails, and they got these little trays. They kind of just snap in here. You kind of like push it down, and then it's hard to do with holding the cell phone, but you get the idea. You push in that little tab right here, and then this slides up and out. You can take your sockets out. Got them organized, standard, metric. And you can go back and look at my other videos to see how these things work, but it's kind of like a twist lock action. Came with plenty of labels, so I could easily read all the sizes. And these are all Craftsman, by the way. Craftsman from like probably close to 20 years ago now. This has been a great set. These are Harbor Freight sockets, impacts. No complaints again. You know, I've switched most of my ratchets to over from Craftsman to Harbor Freight. I still have the Craftsmans; they're laying around. You know, I got them some other place. You know, the Craftsman were good, but the tooth count was low, and I just figured I'd like to try something new. And they've been great so far. Here's a Snap-on ratchet. And like compare it to the Harbor Freight version. You know, ergonomic excuse me, ergonomics. The ergonomics of it are pretty simple, similar. Jeez, I haven't been on YouTube in a year and I can't talk. Well, actually, I couldn't talk originally, so I guess not much has changed. Yeah, they're nice. I don't notice a real big difference between the two, to be honest. I think the actually, I think the Harbor Freight even seems a little bit heavier. But nice ratchets nonetheless. I've really been using a lot these swivel-headed ones. These are pretty handy. I got all my extensions organized on these little twist rails. I really liked using them this way. I didn't go out and intentionally buy a million extensions. I know this is probably more extensions than you'll ever need, but pretty much from when I was like 14, you know, getting like little junk sets here and there from auto parts stores. I'd lose all the sockets or they'd break, and I'd end up accumulating the extensions. So they do come in handy from time to time. And I got my Harbor Freight breaker bar. Another breaker bar. This is an SK. This is a nice breaker bar. Oh. These are like these little freebie lights you get from Harbor Freight. They're pretty neat. Pretty decent lights. Just, you know, they got a magnet on them, and nice place to keep them right there. Alright, so I guess we'll just keep on going down. All my wrenches. I got my Tecton stubbies on both sides. The rest are all Craftsman off of my original mechanics tool set that I got probably in like the late 90s, early 2000s. And these are Ernst wrench rails, which again I've done a review on originally. All the socket and wrench organization stuff is Ernst. I really like their stuff. Good stuff. Probably notice these little desiccant packets. Whenever I get a package, I just toss them in the drawers because my garage is unheated, so we get condensation. Not much you can do about it. It sucks. And then I got my my Tecton long boxed end wrenches. And then going further down the line, all my pliers, vice grips. These are Harbor Freight needle nose. These are Crescent. And got my snap ring pliers. Got some cutting implements, snippers, razor blades, scissors. And then this is my screwdriver and pick drawer. These are my Craftsman nut drivers. I'm trying to figure out a way to organize these better. I mean, they're kind of wedged in here nicely enough, and they stay in place, but they kind of roll back and forth. I think I'm going to fabricate something to kind of keep them organized. This is the newest edition of the box. I got this a couple of weeks ago, and if I was still doing reviews regularly, I would have reviewed this. This has replaced my my Tectons. These are 6, and these have been good set of screwdrivers. You know, you got Phillips head, you got flat, you got Torx, and the thing that I really like about them is they come in this nice case, and they weren't too expensive. I want to say they were like $75, something like that. I got them on Amazon, but they got a nice cushion grip handle, and they don't strip out like the Tectons. Yeah, the Tectons were a disappointment. They seemed real nice, but they rusted just sitting in here for a couple of weeks. So they got like that black finish on them, and the flatheads just kept on stripping and bending. So, and here's my gear wrench picks. Great little set. Got some hex drives, Allens, little screwdrivers. And got some miscellaneous stuff here, seal pullers, flywheel spinner. And then in here, this is my welding stuff. This hasn't really changed. And in here, this is basically my Milwaukee drawer. It didn't start up as being a Milwaukee drawer, but it kind of turned into a Milwaukee drawer. And this is kind of what started the craze. I got this Impact, this little 3/8 drive, and man, I love this little gun. This thing is, I think it's, I don't know, don't quote me, but it's like 250 or 300 foot-pounds, something like that, and it just zips whatever off. I mean, no problem with lug nuts, things like that. But just like general disassembly stuff, it's pretty good. And then the next thing I got was the big boy, which I haven't gotten to use too much, but when I have, it hasn't had a problem breaking anything loose yet. I think that's 1,400 foot-pounds, and basically replaces most, you know, like the I kind of don't really need an air gun anymore for most things. I got this little M12, you know, screw gun just for, you know, like some small like disassembly stuff, maybe working underneath a dash. And I got some chargers here, different bits and things. And I got the bottom drawer, kind of miscellaneous stuff. I got some Harbor Freight angle grinders, which I used on a project over the summer that involved a ton of grinding and welding, and you know, I got tired. I have this DeWalt one, which I've had forever, and it's been great, but you know, it sucks to have to swap out different you know cutting and grinding discs and sanding discs. So these were cheap enough, you know, $20, something like that. Get a couple of them, and they've held up pretty good. You know, anything super, you know, high duration where I'm really, you know, needing a lot of non-stop, you know, I use the DeWalt, but this does most things perfectly fine. And I got like a little torch here to heat things up. Sometimes that helps. Brake stuff. Just miscellaneous stuff over here. I got like some impact sockets in here. I got a riv nut tool in there. I got some these are also Harbor Freight. This is a nice set for lug nuts. And it's a nice little hex key set for bigger hex keys. These are like brake line, you know, flaring tools. And this is I've done a review on this also. My torque wrench, CDI, which I've used a couple of times also. Well, more than a couple of times, and it's been great. Then we got this side. This drawer hasn't changed. It's probably just had more stuff added to it. Just kind of a miscellaneous drawer. Files and little picks and, you know, little things like cotter pins and little flashlights and this thing, which sucks. I mean, it's a Petzl. I don't know. It was a $60 headlight. I had one of these. I still have one of these like Home Depot headlights that like you paid like $6 for or whatever, and I've had it for like 8 years. I put that thing on, and sometimes I forget to turn off the light, and it'll be on like 8-10 hours, and it won't kill the battery. This thing, after like 30 minutes, it goes on like dim mode, battery saver, and it just annihilates batteries. So I don't know. I don't recommend this. This was like $60, not wasted. unless you wanted to spend like $150 or however much for the rechargeable version, which is not worth it. The Home Depot light works fine. This drawer also hasn't changed. You know, all types of RTVs and gasket makers and things like that. One guy had a question on my other video about the Play-Doh, and this is a very useful measuring device. If you're doing a brake system and you're replacing the master cylinder, and you need to measure, you know, you got to adjust the rod coming out of the booster. You don't want that rod adjusted out too much, pushing on the piston on the master cylinder. You don't want it too loose where you have play. You just want it just right there. What I do is I take a little bit of Play-Doh and I put it at the end of the rod, and I put the master cylinder on there, and when I see how it's squished, I know how much contact it's making, I know how much space there is, I know how much I need to adjust that rod. So this is useful for different types of measuring reasons, and if you have kids around, it gives them something to be occupied with when you're in the garage. This is brake tools, brake bender. It really sucks having an uninsulated garage, guys. Look at this. One of these days, you know, more stuff. Clutch alignment tool. Got some little rubber plugs. Spring compressor. And this is a giant 200 milliliter syringe, which is nice for, you know, extracting some fluids without spilling things. Kind of my measurement drawer. I got a set of got a caliper in here. I got an RPM tester here, tape measure, heat measuring device, whatever. Diagnostics, compression tester, vacuum tester, old school timing light. Got a nice remote starter here. Got like suspension stuff, punches, drift punches, alignment tools, pickle forks. And this drawer has not changed also. Hammers and whatnot. Got some hacksaws and things to hammer on. Where should we go? Right or left? Oh, let's do left. This is now we're kind of getting into like miscellaneous junk drawer stuff like that, but not this one. This is my die grinder drawer, and I got all different types of cutting attachments, polishing, and grinding attachments. These are really great for removing surface rust and paint. And these are great for polishing and also removing a little bit of paint and rust. This is a Harbor Freight die grinder. Works pretty good for small stuff. No complaints there. It was also rather inexpensive. And this is where I keep my my flap discs and cutoffs. And I really go with Harbor Freight with this kind of stuff. I mean, price is right. They're consumables. You know, I'm sure if you get a better quality brand, they'll probably consume at a slower rate, but you know, they're also 2 or 3 times the price too. So I have no problem with these. These are good. And these are my Markall pencils. I love these things for marking on steel. Kind of miscellaneous stuff, glass cutting stuff, and screws and nuts and bolts. More nuts and bolts and screws and miscellaneous stuff. This is the graveyard. These are the Tectons, which now I've kind of relegated these to abuse duty. You know, like if I have to make like a special tool or something, you know, I'll bend it, I'll pry it, I'll weld something onto the end of it because, These have just kind of, they're useless. They're a waste of money. More miscellaneous stuff, just randomness. Same thing. And then this is basically all my my electrical stuff. First drawer, I've got some soldering stuff, some wire. Same thing over here, dielectric grease, digital volt ohm meter in here. Got some nice wire strippers, electrical tape. These are great crimping pliers. And these are nice. These are like a cheap screwdriver, not screwdriver. They're star bit for working like on really small electronics. I use these to take apart a CD player to replace the laser on it. All kinds of the connectors. These are, here's some butt splice connectors. I like using these. I use these almost exclusively because I heat shrink them. Heat them up with a heat gun or a small butane torch, like a little handheld thing, and they heat shrink them. They're nice and weather tight. Then I also have more heat shrink and different types of terminals. Fuses, different connectors. This is kind of like a miscellaneous box. You always have fuses and junk left over, so I got one of these little cases to put them in. Some bigger heat shrink and label maker. And some soldering guns. That one I've never used before. I actually got this. The Radio Shack in my town was closing and everything was like really cheap, so I don't know. I got that for like $15 or something like that. And I keep like a 12-volt battery with some leads, and it's helpful for bench testing things. Like I bench tested the fan on the quad here. I got a used one off of eBay, so before installing it on the quad and on the radiator, I bench test it. Some 12 volts. Makes life a little easier. And then here's my heat gun and my little jump and carry jump starter, which is pretty neat. And that's it. That's the box. If you didn't see my first video, I put a 3/16 1/4-inch top here and a nice little Colombian vise that I cleaned up and painted. And it's been a good box. I recommend it. I mean, really, for the money, you can't go wrong. Usually once a year they go on sale, once or twice a year, and you can get them for about $1,000. I think normally it's like $1,200 or $1,100, something like that. But yeah, it's well worth it. Well worth it. I mean, really, when you're a hobby person, or even a professional for that matter, but sometimes even more when you're a hobby person, when your time is limited, you want to get out to the garage, you want to work on something a couple hours at night. Being organized is so critical, man. Like, I was living out of a much smaller toolbox, and my sockets were a mess. Everything was all over the place. I mean, this is nice. Things are easy to read. They're nice and organized. I need a 1/4-inch drive, a 3/8, a 1/2 inch. And then your body gets the memory to it too. But also having things nice and labeled is helpful when you have somebody helping you. So it's really, I've found it so much more of a pleasure to work out of this box with the level of organization that it has. And I know that there are people that are fanatical and even way more organized, but for my needs, this is great. I look forward to coming home when I'm in the middle of, when I'm working on something and changing and coming out here. I got my little routine. I get home, I hop out of the truck, I turn on my heater, go home, walk the dog, maybe I'll eat something real quick. And by the time I come out of here, it's perfectly comfortable to work in the garage. So, and that's it. This is the little workshop. This is a mess right here because I basically pulled everything out of my shed because I'm doing some work in there. And then once that's done, all the stuff's gonna go back in there, and then my 71 Dart can go back in here. But yeah, this is my little project quad I picked up. It was a real mess. I got it in pieces. It's basically a buddy's four-wheeler that he bought as a project, and it kind of stayed in pieces, and it ran a couple of times and it didn't ran, but when I got it, we realized the frame was broken, so I had to pull this all apart and weld it on both sides and repaint it and sort out some cooling issues and some electrical issues. So now she starts up and it sounds pretty nice. Let's see how she goes. So it's my little project, and here's my workbench, which I know you didn't tune into this video to see my whole shop, but more so the update on the toolbox. But that's it. That's where we're at. And you guys got any questions, just leave them down in the comments. I know I haven't been posting in at least a year, but I do answer your questions. You guys comment on my videos, and I get a kick out of helping people out if I can. So that's it. Have a good night. Thanks.